Mom, we need to talk about the family dinner tomorrow night. Malaya's voice came through my phone with that careful tone she always used when she wanted something. My daughter, 34 years old, still capable of making my stomach tighten with a single sentence. I was standing in my kitchen, holding a dish towel, my reflection caught in the window above the sink. The afternoon light made everything look golden and safe. That would change. What about it? I asked. Nothing serious, just some logistics. I set the phone down slowly, carefully. Something in her voice wasn't right. After 45 years of living, after raising 3 children mostly alone after my divorce, I'd learned to recognize when someone was lying. Malaya had inherited that skill from me, which meant she was usually very good at it. But today, there was a tremor underneath the words, a hesitation, a crack in the performance. Malaya, what's going on? I'll explain tomorrow. Can you come by around 6, before everyone arrives? The request itself was unusual. Malaya never wanted me early. She preferred when I showed up right at dinner time, when her husband Jayoin was home, when there were witnesses to whatever version of family she wanted to present. Early meant something else. Early meant privacy. I'll be there, I said. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen for a long time. The dish towel hung from my hand. The house around me felt suddenly fragile, like it was made of paper, and I was about to discover that someone had been writing all over it with a pen I couldn't see. I was 58 years old. I'd survived a marriage that ended in betrayal, a business that failed, a son who hadn't spoken to me in 7 years. I thought I understood what danger looked like. I was wrong about that. Danger, real danger, doesn't announce itself. It whispers through a phone line in your daughter's voice and then waits for you to show up. The next day, I arrived at Malaya's house at 5:45. The modern 2-story colonial sat on a corner lot in the Westridge neighborhood, all clean lines and expensive landscaping. Jayoin had money. Old money, inherited money, the kind that never ran out because it had been earning interest since before I was born. Malaya had married into comfort, which meant she'd also married into a family that saw people like me, divorced, working class, built from nothing, as temporary problems to be managed and eventually discarded. The front door opened before I could knock. Malaya stood there in a cream-colored sweater and black pants, her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her face look severe. She'd lost weight. Or maybe she was just tensed differently, her whole body drawn tight like a rope about to snap. You came early, she said. You asked me to. She stepped aside, and I entered the house. The foyer was exactly as I remembered it. Marble floors, a crystal chandelier, a mirror that made you look like a better version of yourself. Everything in this house was designed to make you feel like you didn't belong. The furniture was too expensive to touch. The art on the walls was too important to look at directly. Even the air smelled like money, something floral and distant. Nothing like the vanilla candles I burned at home. We need to talk in the kitchen, Malaya said. I followed her through the hallway. My daughter's house was a museum of her choices, and those choices rarely included me. Photos on the walls showed her childhood, her college years, her wedding, but there was a pattern to what was displayed and what wasn't. The photos of me were few. The ones that existed were from when I was younger, before my face developed the lines that came from worry and work. Malaya had curated her past carefully, keeping only the versions of events that made her look good. The kitchen was all white marble and stainless steel, a room designed for people who didn't actually cook. Malaya sat at the island and gestured for me to do the same. I pulled out a bar stool and waited. I found something, she said. About 3 weeks ago. I was looking for the guest list for tonight. I had it saved in a folder on the family computer, the one Gioan and I share, and I accidentally opened a different folder. My hands found the marble counter. The surface was cool and smooth. What folder? Gioan's private folder, the one he thought he'd hidden. But he's not very good with computers, and I found it anyway. And in that folder... She stopped. She looked at me like she was trying to decide something, like she was standing at a crossroads and couldn't figure out which direction to take. There were emails between him and my brother June. June was my youngest, 31, unemployed, living in my basement for the past 18 months after his tech startup failed and left him with nothing but debt and a bitterness that had calcified into something harder. He'd always been different from my other children, angrier, more resentful, more convinced that the world owed him something it was withholding. What kind of emails? I asked. The kind that made me understand something about my life that I didn't want to understand. The kind that made me realize I've been living a lie for the past 6 years. Malaya's voice had changed. The careful tone was gone. Now she sounded raw, stripped of all the performance. Mom, they've been planning something for a long time. And I only found out about it 3 weeks ago. And I've been trying to figure out what to do. And I finally decided that I had to tell you. Even though it's going to destroy everything. The kitchen tilted, not physically, but in the way that rooms tilt when you're about to receive information that will reorganize your understanding of reality. I couldn't swallow. My throat had closed. Tell me what? I said. Malaya stood up. She walked to the refrigerator and opened it, but she didn't take anything out. She just stood there, staring into the cold light. Gioan has been stealing from you, from your business accounts, for 6 years. Every month, small amounts that you probably didn't notice because they were hidden in expense reports and vendor payments that looked legitimate. But they add up. Mom, they add up to over $400,000. I heard the words. I processed them individually, but they didn't connect into meaning. My business had been struggling for the past 5 years. I'd attributed it to market changes, to the economy, to my own aging and my inability to keep up with younger competitors. I'd taken out loans. I'd cashed in retirement accounts. I'd been slowly, methodically running out of money while thinking it was my own failure. How do you know this? I asked. Because the emails explain it. Gioan and June have been working together. June found the vulnerabilities in your accounting system. You remember, you hired him to do your website redesign 3 years ago, and he had access to everything. He showed Gioan how to make the transfers look legitimate, and they split the money. 50-50. Why would they do that? Malaya turned to face me. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She was past crying. She was in that place where emotions burned so hot they turned into something else. Because Gioan is broke. His family money isn't real anymore. It's all tied up in trusts and investments that haven't performed, and his parents cut him off 5 years ago because he made bad decisions. He's been pretending to be wealthy this whole time. And June is angry. He's always been angry. And when Gioan approached him with a plan to make money by stealing from you, June saw it as justice, as you finally paying for all the ways you'd failed him. The marble counter was still cool under my fingers. I focused on that. The physical sensation. The only thing that felt real. There's more, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes, there's more. Malaya sat back down. She pulled out her phone and set it on the counter between us. I confronted Gioan about it yesterday. I told him I knew what he'd done and that I was going to tell you and that we were going to make this right. And he told me something that made me understand that this isn't just about money. It's about something worse. I looked at the phone. I didn't touch it. I wasn't sure I wanted to know what was on it. He told me that June has been planning something else, something that's supposed to happen tonight, during dinner, when everyone's here. The words landed slowly, one by one, like stones being dropped into still water. What kind of something? Milaya's voice dropped so low I had to lean forward to hear it. June told Jioen that he's planning to push you down the stairs. Tonight, during dinner. When everyone's gathered in the living room, he's going to convince you to go upstairs to get something. A photo album, a sweater, something innocuous. And when you're at the top of the stairs, he's going to push you hard enough that you fall. And it will look like an accident, like you tripped, like your age and your clumsiness finally caught up with you. The room became very quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I could hear the distant sound of traffic outside. I could hear my own breathing, which had become shallow and fast. He told Jioen this? I asked. Yes, in an email, a detailed email, with a plan, with contingencies, with a backup plan if the stairs didn't work. He was going to try to engineer an accident with the car when he drove you home. But the stairs was the preferred method. And Jioen was going along with this? No, I don't think so. I think Jioen was shocked by it. I think he realized that June isn't just a thief. He's someone capable of something much worse. And Jioen, for all his faults, isn't a murderer. So he told me about it. Because he knew I would tell you. Because he knew that I couldn't let this happen. I stood up. I needed to move. I needed to do something with the energy that was suddenly coursing through my body. I walked to the window above the sink, the same window I'd stood at yesterday, holding a dish towel, completely unaware that my life was about to collapse. The backyard was beautiful. A manicured lawn, a stone patio, a pergola with climbing roses, everything designed to look peaceful, everything a lie. We need to call the police, I said. I know, but I wanted to tell you first. I wanted you to understand what was happening before everything became official and legal and permanent. It's already permanent, Milaya. My son, my own son, was planning to murder me. The word hung in the kitchen. Murder. Not an accident. Not a moment of rage. Not a crime of passion. A planned, premeditated, carefully organized attempt to kill me and make it look like something else. And the person who had planned it was someone I'd fed, someone I'd raised, someone I'd loved even when he made it difficult to do so. What do you want to do? Milaya asked. I turned back to face her. I want to know everything. Everything that's in those emails. Everything that Jioen knows. Everything about the plan. Milaya opened her phone and showed me the emails. They were methodical. June had written them in a detached, almost clinical way, like he was describing a business transaction rather than a murder. He'd outlined the timing. He'd noted the best moment, when I'd be tired from the day, when my reflexes would be slower, when I'd be less likely to catch myself. He'd discussed the financial motivation. He'd written about his resentment. He'd explained, in his own words, why he felt justified in doing this. I read every word. I read them multiple times. I tried to understand how my own child could write these things. How he could think these thoughts. How he could plan to destroy me and feel righteous about it. The police need to see this, I said. I know. But first, we need to decide what we're going to do about tonight, about the dinner. We cancel it. If we cancel it, he'll know something's wrong. He'll suspect that I told you. He might run. He might destroy the evidence. Or he might try something else, something we're not prepared for. I understood what she was saying. We needed to let the plan play out far enough that we could control it. We needed to make him believe that everything was proceeding as he'd designed it. We needed to catch him in the act. "You want me to go upstairs?" I said. "You want me to let him push me?" "No, but I want him to try. I want him to make the move. I want there to be no doubt about his intention. And if he succeeds? If I fall?" "You won't. I'll be watching. Jioen will be watching. We'll be ready." I looked at my daughter. I saw the fear in her eyes, but I also saw something else. I saw the same determination I'd always had, the same refusal to back down, the same willingness to do hard things because they were necessary. "Okay," I said. "We do it your way." The next few hours passed in a blur of planning. Jioen came home and confirmed everything Malaya had told me. He showed me more emails. He explained the financial scheme in detail. He told me about June's increasing anger over the past year, his conviction that I owed him something, his belief that my death would somehow make things right. "I tried to talk him out of it," Jioen said. "When he first told me about the plan, I told him it was insane, but he kept talking about it. He kept refining it. And I realized that he wasn't going to stop. So I told Malaya." "Why didn't you go to the police yourself?" I asked. "Because I was a coward. Because I was afraid of what would happen to me if I did. Because I was complicit in stealing from you. And I knew that coming forward would expose that. But when it came to murder, I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't let my cowardice result in your death." I didn't forgive him. I didn't absolve him of his crimes. But I understood that he'd made a choice at the last moment, and that choice had saved my life. The other guests began arriving at 6:30. My daughter Carolina, my oldest, came with her husband Stajo. My son Carius arrived alone. He'd been divorced for 2 years and had custody of his 2 children on alternate weekends, which wasn't this weekend. And June arrived at 6:45, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a smile that I now understood was a mask. I looked at him and tried to see a murderer. I tried to reconcile the man standing in front of me with the person who had written those emails. They didn't match. The person in front of me looked tired and ordinary. He looked like someone who'd had a difficult few years. He didn't look like someone capable of killing his own mother. But that was the point. That was the lesson I was about to learn. The people capable of the worst things rarely look the part. We sat down to dinner at 7. The table was set beautifully, white linens, good china, flowers in the center. Malaya had cooked a roast. There was wine and salad and homemade bread. Everything was perfect. Everything was a performance. I watched June throughout the meal. I watched him eat and talk and laugh. I watched him be charming to Carolina and Stajo. I watched him engage with Carius about some television show they both watched. I watched him be my son, and I tried to reconcile that with what I knew about him. At 8 o'clock, June stood up. He looked at me. "Mom, I left something in the car. Could you come help me get it? It's a photo album I wanted to show everyone. It's from that trip we took when you were still married to Dad." The lie was so smooth, so practiced. He'd probably rehearsed it 100 times. "Of course," I said. I stood up. I could feel Malaya watching me. I could feel Jioen's tension. I could feel the weight of the moment. I walked toward the hallway with my son. He guided me toward the stairs. "Actually, the album is upstairs," he said. "I left it in the guest room." "Okay." We climbed the stairs, just the 2 of us. At the top, he turned to me. "I'm sorry," he said. Those were the last words he spoke as a free man. Because in that moment, Malaya appeared at the bottom of the stairs, and Jioen appeared in the hallway, and my phone, which I'd left on the table downstairs, had been recording the entire dinner. Every word, every confession, every moment of his performance. June looked at them. He looked at me. And then he ran. He ran toward the back stairs, the ones that led to the kitchen. But Jaeon was faster. Jaeon tackled him before he reached the door. They fell together onto the carpet, and June started screaming. He screamed about injustice. He screamed about how I'd ruined his life. He screamed about how I'd never given him what he deserved. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They arrested him right there in the hallway while he was still screaming. They read him his rights. They put him in handcuffs. They took him away. The other guests had heard the commotion. Carolina came upstairs and found me sitting on the edge of the guest room bed. Karius came upstairs and found his sister holding my hand. They didn't understand what had happened. Not yet. But they would soon. Everyone would soon. The investigation took 6 weeks. During those 6 weeks, I learned that my son had been planning this for over a year. I learned that he'd researched the best way to make a fall look accidental. I learned that he'd calculated the odds of survival and decided they were acceptable. I learned that he'd been motivated not just by anger, but by a specific incident. A loan I'd refused to give him 3 years ago. Money he'd wanted to invest in a business that would have failed anyway. I learned that my other son, Karius, had known something was wrong but had been too afraid to say anything. I learned that my oldest daughter, Carolina, had noticed changes in June's behavior, but had attributed them to depression rather than murderous intent. I learned that everyone around me had sensed something, but had been unable or unwilling to name it. June was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and theft. Jaeon was charged as an accessory to theft and conspiracy. Both were convicted. June received 22 years. Jaeon received 8, with the understanding that his testimony against June would be considered at his parole hearing. I moved out of my house 3 months after June's arrest. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room held the memory of raising him. Every corner held the ghost of a love I'd given freely, and which had been repaid with a plan to destroy me. I sold the house at a loss. I used the money to pay back the business accounts that Jaeon and June had stolen from. I filed bankruptcy to manage the debt I'd accumulated trying to keep my business afloat while being robbed blind. I was 58 years old and starting over. Again. I found a small apartment in a different neighborhood. A 1-bedroom in a building where nobody knew my history, where I could be anonymous, where I didn't have to explain why my son was in prison. I got a job working in the office of a medical clinic. It didn't pay much, but it was enough. It was honest. It was mine. Malaya came to visit me 2 weeks after I moved in. She brought flowers and groceries and a casserole she'd made. We sat in my small living room and didn't talk about what had happened. We talked about other things. We talked about her work. We talked about the weather. We talked about everything except the fact that her brother had tried to kill me. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what?" "You saved my life." "For being part of a family that produced someone capable of this. For marrying someone who was stealing from you. For not knowing sooner." "You couldn't have known? None of us could have known. June was careful. He was smart. He was patient." "He was sick," Malaya said. "That's what I've been trying to understand. How does a person get that sick? How does a mother raise a child and not see the sickness growing inside him?" "I don't know. I've been asking myself that same question every day since the arrest, and I still don't have an answer." We sat in silence for a while. Outside my window, the city moved on. Cars passed. People walked by. The world continued as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. My understanding of my children had changed. My understanding of myself had changed. My understanding of what I was capable of enduring had changed. "What are you going to do?" Malaya asked. "Going forward, I mean. Are you going to try to have a relationship with him after he gets out?" "I don't know. I can't answer that right now. Maybe in 10 years, I'll have enough distance to think about forgiveness. But today, I can't forgive him. Today, I can only acknowledge that he's my son, and that he tried to kill me, and that I survived." "That's enough," Malaya said. "For today, that's enough." Now 3 years later, I'm 51, and I'm still here. I still work at the medical clinic. I've been promoted to office manager. I've paid off most of my debt. I've rebuilt my business from scratch, a small consulting firm that serves nonprofits. I'm not wealthy. I'm not secure in the way I thought I'd be at this stage of my life. But I'm alive. I'm independent. I'm free. June is still in prison. He's served 3 years of his 22-year sentence. He's written me letters asking for forgiveness. I haven't responded to any of them. I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. Koreas comes to see me once a month. We have dinner together. We don't talk about June. We talk about his life, his work, his children. We're rebuilding the relationship that was damaged by what happened. Carolina calls me every Sunday. She's working through her own guilt about not seeing the signs. She's in therapy. She's trying to understand how she could have missed something so significant. I tell her what I tell myself. You can't blame yourself for someone else's choices. Malaya and I have become closer. What we went through together created a bond that wasn't there before. We've learned to talk about difficult things. We've learned to be honest with each other in ways we weren't before. She's my daughter, and my friend, and the person who saved my life. Jeoen was released after serving 5 years. He and Malaya divorced. He moved to another state. I don't know what he's doing now, and I don't care. He made his choices. I made mine. I've learned that family is complicated. I've learned that love doesn't guarantee loyalty. I've learned that the people closest to you can be capable of things you never imagined. I've learned that survival is possible even when everything falls apart. I've learned that starting over at 58 is difficult, but not impossible. Most importantly, I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I've learned that I can endure things that would break most people. I've learned that I can rebuild. I've learned that I can forgive myself for the things I couldn't control. Even if I can't yet forgive my son for the things he could. If you're facing something impossible right now, if you're dealing with betrayal from the people closest to you, if you're trying to understand how to survive something that feels unsurvivable, know that you're not alone. Know that recovery is possible. Know that there is life on the other side of this darkness. Reach out. Tell someone. Don't let shame keep you silent, because silence is what allows these things to happen. Truth is what stops them, and you deserve the truth. You deserve safety. You deserve to survive.